Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and start? There's a few people watching. Whoever you are, thank you for watching, and those who watch later. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and start. Give a little bit of an intro. We're basically going to talk to each other about missions. We've been doing it here in the. Let me see. How long have you been here?
Oh, that's
24, 36 hours, something like that.
Something like that. Came in on Saturday, right?
Yes, Saturday.
I think.
Yeah, Saturday afternoon. Yes, it's been 48 hours.
Yeah.
So a lot has happened in 48 hours.
Right.
And one thing is my voice this morning, I could hardly talk. But
boy.
Fortunately, throughout the day, it came back a little bit. So we thought we would just chat about the ministry. Graham, give us just a quick bio of where you have been and what your situation is now.
I was a youth pastor in a church in Tennessee. Lord called us to Brazil. We spent 39 years working with Baptist Mid Missions. I'm wearing the logo here. It's probably backward on your screen, but
no, it's right.
Working in Brazil, church planting, involved in Bible college ministry. I was president of the board of our Bible college in Curitiba for 20, 25 years perhaps.
What did that entail?
Basically, it meant I had to sign a lot of legal documents. That was the big thing I had to do. I didn't live near the campus, but they called me in for preaching and for counsel and things like that.
Okay.
And I sent a lot of students there. That was helpful to them.
Okay.
And then after continuing our church planting, we planted 6 churches in Brazil. We were able also to become the field administrator for Brazil. We were often a mission board would call people home to be in the home office, to be the field administrator. But they just tried something new, and that was what we called remote field administrators. And it works very well in some cases, and we found that it doesn't work very well in others.
Yeah.
But in my case, it was terrific. I lived in Brazil. I already knew everybody, and I just handled the ministry care, member care, from Brazil. It was closer than being in America. And
for sure.
Plus, since I'd already been there with these people, I'd been in most of their homes. I'd been at conferences with them, preached for them in their churches, or had them in for me. So anyway, that's my experience: church planting, field administration, and the Bible education for nationals.
Yeah. So you had
I taught
Bible institutes.
Yeah, and I taught at a seminary in São Paulo for about 3 years.
What kind of seminary?
Well, also a Bible institute. Marv and Diane Frey.
Yeah.
With the Esperanza project there, they began a Bible institute, and it got up to probably 70 students at one point. It doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but I was one of their teachers. I told them that I was not their first string. I was their reserve bench. And so when they needed somebody to come in, I would come in, and I taught things like youth ministry and Calvinism and Arminianism. I mean, they put Sunday school administration. I did a lot of practical courses. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the Forans go way back to Southside, Greenville.
Yeah.
And so do we. Our family. My parents were sent out from Southside, or the Southside was their home church basically, and so were Mimi's parents. And so they had heard about us.
When we were students, after we got married at Bob Jones, we went to Southside so we could be in Dr. Garlock's Sunday school class. That was our big desire.
Yeah, my parents too.
And as long as we went there, we always heard about the Bonikowskys. We heard about the Allens. They were just names that were constantly mentioned from the pulpit. And so even before I knew who these people were exactly, we got prayer cards and we prayed for you. We prayed for your parents. We prayed for the Allens. For years, we have the prayer cards in our little box and just go through them regularly.
And we heard about the Forans, whether from Southside or later from Berean.
Yeah.
But as so often happens with missionaries, I've got a friend, in Japan. I have several friends in Japan I went to school with, and I mean, we never coincide in the States at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to coincide furlough, then you have to coincide in the church.
Yeah.
You have to coincide in churches that support you mutually. Then you have to coincide on the same weekend or conference. It's almost impossible. So many times I have friends that I haven't seen since college.
Right.
And yet we
Right.
communicate, and
Sure.
they're missionaries, we're missionaries, but
Yep.
yeah, so that happens.
Yeah, it's great.
So we actually met last October
Right.
at the
Right.
Berean Missions Conference, and you were in a specific phase. What were you doing at that point?
Well, we were in our retirement age. We are officially now retired from ministry in missions, working at our local church now, and I'm in kind of charge of missionaries coming into our church. We have a lot of missionaries coming through, and I make
That
sure
church is?
Buffalo Ridge Baptist Church
Yeah.
in Gray, Tennessee, making sure they're housed right. I don't do the arranging, but make sure they're contacting the right people.
Supervising
Make
all,
sure they get the meals they need to do, and I also talk to them. The pastor asked me to kind of evaluate the
Feel 'em
ones
out
that
a little
come
bit.
through. Do I feel like they're good candidates? I'm going to praise the Lord that we have had some terrific missionary candidates come through, and so far we've been able to help all of them. But it's a great
We have a lot of
thing.
missionaries, like what, 100 or something?
Yeah, there's at least 100 missionaries that are supported regularly.
Yeah.
And we have others from our church that are supported at a higher level. But we've been able to help a lot of missionaries even that we couldn't support.
Support monthly or
I'm
something.
not putting out an appeal for people to come, but
Yeah,
it's fun. It's exciting. The church has been able to give, because of the funds that the church has given the church, the Lord has given the church, give out huge amounts of money to
Sure.
missionaries around the world.
I'm sure millions over the years.
Well,
yeah, sure.
yeah,
For
so
sure.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. Okay. So you were basically visiting your churches, telling them.
That's exactly right. I was making a kind of a goodbye furlough, speaking to the churches, letting them know what our plans were. At the beginning of our furlough, I was still acting as field administrator, and the plan had been that I would go on with that for a number of years. But as we talked, the president and I and others, I realized that the man I had already picked out as our replacement, he really needed to get into it now. If I waited a couple of more years, then that just meant, because of his age, he would have had less time to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because number one, it was just good to turn it over.
Yeah,
and
sure.
number two, he's done so much more than I was doing. I mean, I know he's being a blessing to the field of Brazil. I was a field administrator for the field of Brazil. That was the only responsibility.
How many
I had.
missionaries would there be in Brazil
Oh,
from your board, for example?
I'm going to say at this point we probably have around 40.
From one mission.
Yeah. Well, and when I went to Brazil, we had around 200.
Good night. Really?
Yes, those were the heydays. I'm sorry, I wish it was that way again,
Yeah.
but still we have a good number, and we'd love recruits. Anybody out there interested
Yeah, well,
in
Brazil's
missions?
a huge
Brazil's
country.
a huge field.
Give us a quick family. What's your family made of?
my-
Where are they, and so
yeah.
forth? And then I'll do the same.
My wife Renee is here with me. You may have
Yes,
noticed
in the kitchen.
Yeah, in the kitchen. We have 4 children: 2 boys, 2 girls. Both boys are married. One has 6 and one has 4 children. So we have 10 grandchildren. 10 grandchildren. Oldest grandson is married, has had a baby, and so that's our first great grandchild. Both girls are single, working in secular work. Very. To me, difficult work. They've explained to me what they do several times, and I still have no clue exactly what they do. But I'm glad they're paid well for doing it. And,
Okay, I'm going to try and pop up a picture that I took of the Forans. Hopefully, I won't mess something up here. I don't think so. But I'd pop up a picture that I took just a few hours ago. I took them to our capital city of San Sebastián or Donosti. So I got a picture of them there. Let me see where that would be. Here we go. So that you can see Renee as well.
yeah.
And I don't know if I can get one quick of my wife. That's our capital city in the background with the beautiful beach.
Yeah,
and there's,
beautiful view from that high point.
yeah, and there's Graham. And in fact, actually, what I could do is I could pop that down here and
There we go.
cover up. Believe it or not, he went in. I took him to Carrefour on our way back, and they came out. They were going to get something, and he comes out with Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper sugar-free or something
Yeah,
like that.
zero.
I've never seen Dr. Pepper here in my life. Probably have it down in Spain, but definitely don't have it down here. So anyway, well, for now, I'll just.
So we're
think,
testing Spanish Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
here,
he's not too convinced. So so did you give your family? I was
Yes,
doing
yes,
this.
I did. I
wasn't-
talked about my kids and grandkids
Okay.
and great grandkids. So
Okay.
I think I covered the bases.
Then Mimi and I have 4 children. Our oldest son David was born in Greenville right before we went on deputation back in '87. He was born in '87, and then we got here in '89. Danny was born almost immediately, and then Mark was born '91, and Rachel was born in '93 when we came to this town, and so we've been here 33 years since Rachel was born. And now, of course, all of them, like yours, are out of the home. David married a Spanish pastor's daughter. They have 4, and they have a ministry an hour away from here, church plant. And then Danny married Jordan. They have 2 children, and they are just 5 minutes down the road, and they work in our ministry. And then Mark married Andrea, who's an MK from southern Spain. They live in Greenville, are active members there in Hampton Park, and and they're expecting their first. And then our daughter Rachel married Ethan, who, well, anyway, they live down south of Greenville, about an hour south of Greenville, and they have 4 children, and they're as well active in their church down there. So we have two children here, 2 children there, 1, 2, 3, 4 grandchildren and a half there,
Yeah.
and 6 here. So,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Lord has been very good to us as well.
May your tribe increase.
And you have a great
Great
grand. So that's our family situation. And so getting to the point, as you can see there, let me change the view on this so that if anybody does, if you have a question for of any kind, just let us know, and if you chat on there, we'll try and comment about it. But so we have here on the title, Lessons Learned on the Mission Fields of South America, Brazil, and Europe, and that would be Spain, northern Spain in this case, the Basque region, Basque country of Spain. So that's our context. I mean, it is 2 continents, and they're as we've talked about the ministry and about the cultures, they're very different, but they're also
Alike in a lot of ways. Yes, yeah.
in ways that neither of them are alike in the States. In other words,
Yes,
they're
yeah.
definitely not the United States.
Right.
And so there are definitely similarities, and it's very interesting to walk through those. So what we thought we'd do is just bring up some subjects. We have literally topics we could talk for hours. I have no idea how long this is going to last, until we get tired or you get tired or something. So we were just going to bring up some things that we've talked about as we've shared experiences and just lessons that we've learned. So
Yeah.
if you want to start with anything, and I might interrupt you, you can interrupt me, and we'll just go at it.
I kind of made a list. I mean, I made
Yes.
a list on this side, and then I kind of condensed them and put them in another.
Go for
I
it.
got to thinking, one of the things that I think the biggest lesson I learned on the field was about this idea of success. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you know a missionary is successful? And I was telling you before we started, I never intended to be a missionary. I felt called to the ministry, and I thought I'd probably be a youth director or something like that all my life. I never even really saw myself as pastor of the church. I just thought I'd be an assistant pastor.
Which you were.
Which I was for 8 years. And
Hey.
then the Lord called us from that. And when I got to the field, I realized that all that time I had spent in learning under Pastor Gene Lastly had been preparing me for the mission field.
Sure.
When I got to the mission field, and I know some fields are different, but I had to learn the culture and the language, but I didn't have to learn the ministry.
Right.
So I think the preparation of being in ministry before I had the opportunity to be a missionary was really fundamental to
So how old were you when you got to the field?
I think I was about 33. I could
Oh, see, that's
calculate
like my parents.
Yeah, yeah. I think maturity is important. Now, I've met some really young missionaries going into the field, and you were pretty young when you started, weren't you?
Yes, but my parents came when I was 9. How old was your oldest?
7.
Really?
7, yeah.
So that's very
So
similar.
very, very similar, yes.
And my dad had to really. I mean, he went with the language, but he had to really. He had studied in BJ and he'd done his best. But when he got here, he went full intense into a language
Yeah, right. Yeah.
course, language school.
Yeah.
But he says really that, I mean, his major learning came when he just came up here
Sure.
and dove into the culture and
Yeah.
was sink or swim.
Yeah, and it is important. I tried to study in America, and I learned a few things like where's the bathroom and stuff, and even phrases that I never used once in all of my life. But learning that language was fundamental for success. And I have had seen missionaries who've come to the field and tried to just learn by going out.
Yeah.
Now there are people that can do that,
Yeah.
but the ones I've met,
Some will head back.
they just headed back. They got
Yeah,
discouraged.
they got discouraged,
Lost.
sure, absolutely.
But I think what I was I learned. What did I learn about this issue? Is that people, and I mean this in two senses. People matter. Number one, you have to have people on the mission field to have success. And I was concerned when I told you when I was in college. I've never planted a church. Could I do it? Would the Lord use me, or would I just go and be useless?
Yeah.
And I found out that when I got to Brazil and just tried, the Lord blessed. But if I hadn't have been there, it wouldn't have happened. We need people on the field. People who are there. Sure, there are some people who probably shouldn't have gone to the mission field. Sure, there's some people who weren't morally or spiritually prepared, and they kind of make a bust. But as I look back, everybody I've met that's come and tried to serve on the field, even if it was for a relatively short time, they made an impact.
Yeah.
They touched people. There are people in my ministry actively serving the Lord today that are there undoubtedly because a young person came down and spent 9 months with us teaching our kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And her impact on some young people in the church, now 39 years later, is still bearing fruit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
We have a couple. One of our most solid couples in the ministry now. Somewhat related to that, she got an invitation from a girl on a mission team who was just giving out invitations in a city here about 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
And she got that invitation, and because of that invitation, he came to church. Well, later ended up getting married a guy. They got saved. He got baptized, and they're key people in our church today.
Yeah.
And it was this girl that just came for a week and a half.
Well, that's
She just
exactly the
happened to
point.
give it.
People on the field, God says in His Word to go. And yes, I believe lifetime ministry is an important thing, a long-term experience. But even a determined effort to be used is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so people being there, of course, then people loving people. We had a missionary colleague who never really learned to speak Portuguese. I mean, he did, but I was a new missionary, and people in the church, and he was the veteran missionary, and people would come up to me and say, I don't understand anything he says. And I would say, well, just hang around. You kind of catch on after a while. He kind of had his own version of Portuguese.
Yeah.
But he loved people.
Yeah.
He and his wife, they just loved everybody.
Yeah.
And the Lord used him in a fantastic way. There are churches, many churches in Brazil, and many, many, many believers in Brazil, and their children who have followed on in the faith, because this guy was there who never was really good.
Yeah.
He could have said, well, I'm not good at language, so I shouldn't go.
Yeah. I
That's
have a friend. He's no longer in the field, but if I named him, everybody here in Spain would know who it is. And oh my, he slaughtered Spanish. I mean, he slaughtered it, and it was hilarious. And to this day, people will imitate him and everything. But he loved the people.
That's
He
right.
He got a church together. He left. It's in the hands of another young guy right now, and it's just going great guns.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just slaughtered the language, but he loved the people,
That's right.
and they
That's
loved
right.
him,
Yeah.
and he has a legacy left behind, even
Yeah.
though, you know, he just could not get the language. And,
People have different abilities.
yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
that's
And I say, people are involved. People in both sides, the missionary and the emphasis on the people. And when I speak to missionary candidates about the dangers that new missionaries face, why do missionaries leave? Why do people sometimes go home after just a short time? One of my key points is that you need to be a learner. You need to learn the culture. You need to study the people. You need to study the language, obviously, but learn everything you can about the culture and everything you can about what they do and why they do it and their history. Brazilians often say, I know more about Brazilian history than they do because, I made a point. But I said, be a learner and then be a lover. If you just love people and, try to love the food, brag on the food. I got my Brazil T-shirt here on.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, of course.
I didn't think I wasn't going to open my shirt up, but I was wearing it today because I love Brazil.
Yeah.
I meet Brazilians on the train in Paris, and we just go crazy talking to each other. Because
on Sunday, yesterday, he was preaching, and right as he started a testimony or something, church was full, and he belted out something in Portuguese.
I said, hello to all the Brazilians here.
Yeah, and man, did he get a response. And there weren't that many there, and I hardly knew who was there from Brazil.
Yeah.
And but they really responded.
They do.
Yeah.
Brazilians, when you meet Brazilians, no matter where you are in the world,
Your family.
Your family,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good. Okay, well, yeah, the mission fields of Europe and South America in some ways, have similarities, and in some ways they're extremely different. They're very, very different. It's amazing to me to hear and to see the pictures of the Foran's ministry with, 6 thriving church congregations with pastors and deacons and so forth, and I'm thinking, and I remember in the 90s, when we had a printing press, we worked for years and years, gave out literature like popcorn, and I mean, we didn't have 4 people, and if we had one visitor in the entire year, that was the headlines on the prayer letter, And I remember thinking, man, I have friends that went to college with me. They're already starting their 2nd, 3rd church. And I was thinking, what a difference, because we studied the same thing. We took the same courses. We got the same degrees. and I had to deal with that.
Sure.
Because it was like, I thought I was going to really, I really thought I was going to beat the woods up, because I'd grown up here. I knew the language. I knew the culture. I mean, yeah, I knew what I was coming to. And it didn't go fast at all. And to see places where the people respond, and not only that, but what amazes me, and as I've talked with you, is how the Brazilian culture or people or however you want to call it, how you get leadership that is qualified. Now, in our church, we've been going at it for 30 years, and we have now you've seen, it's a thriving, growing church, and we have some solid men and women and some couples, but when we talk about pastoral qualifications and pastoral candidates, man, I have one young man who has a pastor's heart. He has a pastor's heart, and not very few people have a pastor's heart.
Yeah.
He has a pastor's heart. But if I explain to you the baggage he has, oh my word, I'd like to see what a professor at a missions college would say about that. What do you do when somebody comes who has a pastor's heart, loves the Lord, he's got it. But he has so much baggage. You wonder, okay, what do we do here, Yeah. And that's my best candidate, that's my best person. Yeah. And yet some and honestly, Spain has always been, from my understanding, it has always been very, very difficult to find Spanish male leadership. And there are a few, very few Spanish pastors in the independent Baptist churches. I know that they're friends of mine. Yeah. There's about a half a dozen that are. I mean, but we're talking the ministry's been going on here for 50 years, yeah. And there's about half a dozen good, solid independent Baptist Spanish pastors. Yeah. And everybody tried, everybody worked, everybody wants.
Sure,
and
sure.
Yeah. I'm not saying I know them all, but those are, there's definitely not many more than that. So, there's differences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And one of the notes I have here for missionary candidates is you have to be patient too. You have to be patient. Now, Brazil is a unique place, and I think I was in on maybe the tail end of the biggest explosion. Church planting changes. Church planting methodology changes. Yeah. The churches we started in the late 80s and 90s took off very quickly. And we were able to get groups together, build buildings, send people off to Bible college. I think at one point we had, I'm trying to remember now, I think we had like 13 or 14 in the Bible college training at one time from our churches.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
And most of those kids are in the ministry today. They're either pastors or pastors' wives or missionaries, Brazilian missionaries, church planting missionaries. I mean, it was a wonderful time. Toward the end, it was much slower getting a church started. The culture was changing. The materialism had kind of come in. But still, you have to be patient about what's going on. If I was church planting today, I'd have to do things differently than I did.
Yeah. Well, he mentions patience, and my first thing on my list is the same thing, just said a different way, and that is God is not in as much of a hurry as I am.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've learned.
Yes.
He is not in the, I mean, I remember, I've said this many times, I had back then with slide projectors, you remember those?
Oh yeah.
I had a slide projector. I had two slide projectors and a fader. This was absolutely modern. And I had this presentation, and Mimi and I went around presenting, and I don't even want to see it. I don't want to ever see it because it'll be so embarrassing, because we had plenty of goals and plans, and one of them, I had the 5 churches that we're going to establish. Right off the bat, we were going to get these 5, and here I am. This is 30 how many years? 36 years later. Yeah. We've got one church solid enough to be self-supporting in its own finances and all that, still trusting the Lord for an actual pastor. But he wasn't in nearly as much of a hurry as I was.
Well, Danny Sweat, one of our connections between us is Pastor Sweat from Berean.
Yeah.
And every time he came to visit us, and he visited us more than anybody else, any other pastor, he always talked about the Bonikowskys. I knew the Bonikowskys before I knew you, other than knowing your family, because Pastor Sweat was always telling us about it. And he said something to me one time that really impressed me, and I don't know if you remember saying it, but it was really, that's one of the things that, as we prayed for you over the years, we always bore this in mind. You told him something like this: I don't know if I'm building for now or if I'm building for the next generation. Maybe all the work that we do will be so that the next generation will have the means of having a church. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's what you call a long-term goal and being available.
Well, I had to come to grips with that during the 90s when I saw other friends in other countries, having a tremendous amount of success, quick success, so to speak. And so at some point, Lord had given us a printing ministry. Yeah. So I dove into the printing ministry and we produced tracts not only for our ministry, but for ministries all over the country. Tiny little press, but we did over 1 million tracts during those 6, 7, 8 years. And I remember coming to the conclusion that I am in a sowing phase, and I'm going to sow like crazy, and I don't want to sow. There's several things going on at the same time. if we sow, God promises there will be a harvest. He doesn't promise when.
Yes.
But you sow, there will be a harvest because his word
That's
will come back.
Yeah.
And the gospel will save souls. Now, I did not want to sow up a storm with a horrible attitude because I'm
Yeah.
thinking nobody's answering and these
Yeah,
people
yeah.
don't want us here, these whatever, you know,
Right,
and
right, right.
it would be like sowing a field in the sun, you're sweating, you're hot, and complaining the whole way while you're sowing. Well, later the harvest comes up and you're happy, you're, shooting
Yeah,
off fireworks
yeah.
And rejoicing and all that. But you think, but when I was sowing, I had a horrible attitude.
Yeah.
I decided we were not going to do that. We were going to sow with a good attitude and a happy spirit, so that if we did see a harvest in our lifetime, that we would not have that nagging bit of guilt that we sure could have had a better attitude when we did the sowing.
And when I came to your church Sunday, I'd seen some pictures, so I was anticipating. I was just thrilled. I mean, the spirit of expectancy and the joy people were expressing to each other and their participation in the service and response as I was preaching.
Yeah, they responded to you
Oh,
well.
yeah. I mean, it was just great fun to be at your church.
If I
lived
Sunday.
here, I'd go to your church.
Good. That's the highlight of my week. Every Sunday is like that. I use the term. It doesn't sound very spiritual, but I say the mood was electric.
Yeah, well, it was. And that is something that happens in a church, when that happens, it's showing that the
contagious,
Lord.
too.
It's contagious. It draws people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We had, I don't know how many unsaved people we had on Sunday. We had probably 4 or 5 adults.
Yeah.
And if they were searching, they'll be back.
Yep.
And we'll figure it out, and it'll keep on going. But that was a great message, by the way. So Pastor Sweat was a key person after about 2000 when he came in, really strongly came into our lives in ministry. I don't know if he said this or I just pictured it or whatever, but in the Berean, which was such a missions church, whether it was sending out mission teams or visiting missionaries or supporting missionaries for a good amount, I always saw Pastor Sweat as someone who he was constantly blowing in the sails of the missions program of the church.
Yes.
He didn't have to go on all the mission trips. In fact, he didn't. He sent his staff out for they'd go out on a survey trip, and then the next thing you knew, they were taking 10, 15 people, and Pastor was just behind them, just blowing that ship forward.
And always available, always open for a
call,
request.
absolutely.
If you called him and said, "Hey, we got this," and always willing to help.
He was right on it if you had a question for him.
And Pastor Todd has been the same way. I mean, he has been such a help to us.
Friend,
we're of course retired now, so we're no longer receiving the support.
Sure.
But and he's told me personally, he said, keep in touch, let us know.
Yeah. And Pastor Todd, I don't do it as much as I wish I did, but every once in a while I'll write him an email just to give him a little bit of an update and to let him know how things are going.
Yeah.
And I wish I did it more regularly, but a lot of brands in the fire.
Yeah.
So when I do, I mean, he's right back,
That's
back with a little blurb. So
well, we talked about the success in the field, and one of the things I saw you do here, and this is something we had, was this emphasis on team ministry, team together. Because I've had some young missionaries come through recently that I've talked to, and I'm afraid in some cases they kind of have this idea that they have to be in their own ministry. They'll say, well, we're going to work with somebody for a year, and then we're going to go out and start our own church.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, nothing wrong with that. Certainly a great goal. But I said, hey, don't be in a rush. I said, I have learned that our team was so effective. I think we were more effective as a team than we would have been effective in individual ministry.
Yeah.
A couple can only do so much. But 2 or 3 couples, and we usually had 2 or 3 couples in our team, and we for a long time, almost always had a single missionary lady, whether Brazilian or American, who worked with us. So much more we could do. so much easier for somebody to take a furlough when you have all the bases covered.
Well, we started out trying to do several things here at once, but we started out coming as a team with another couple. Didn't work out. They came, they're a good missionary, but they're in a different place. And God changed all our plans, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we came here and we had our ministry here in such a tiny little area, tiny town, small. And we just thought, well, God wants us here in this tiny little corner. And I guess it's so small we don't need coworkers. So I actually quit asking God for coworkers. And then, bam, he dumped them right in front of our lap.
Yeah.
And our Mexican coworkers
Yeah,
wanted that
yeah.
they met them out of the blue in 1996. And they came up and in 1997 joined us. And we were two couples with a combined seven kids. And for years it was us. How many are 6, 5, 11? Yeah. It was us 11 and 2 believers, 3 believers, 4 believers, 5 believers. Almost nobody. Yeah. But they've been with us now for 30 years. I think this year it's 30 years. And then through the years we've had different co-workers. Right now there's 4 of us, 4 families. We've had others through the years, and some of them have come and gone. Had great relationships with them, even though some of them left, and we became supporting pastors in the States or whatever. But we couldn't do a fraction of what we do if it was just us. It just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't happen because there's a Bible principle there that one can do this, but 2 can do 10 times more.
Yeah.
And
you multiply your effectiveness.
Correct.
Plus talents, people's different abilities and talents, gifts collaborate. And that was one of the things I did not anticipate when I came to the mission field. I kind of thought, I would be out there basically by myself. Yeah. And quickly figured out that it was so important. Of course, we recruited nationals, and the Lord gave us nationals. Almost in every church, we had a national couple that was able to start with us.
Oh, that's good.
And we were able to, in a different case than you have, all of our pastors in our churches right now are people that grew up in our churches. Mm-hmm. So one of the advantages is we didn't have, not 100%, but they were all young. Mm-hmm. And so they had not had all the bad baggage that they would have had if they'd have been older. And several of them were just kids when they started with us, and today are pastoring our churches.
And in our church, same principle, smaller context, of course, but in our church, our key people yesterday who were serving in the children, serving in the kitchen, serving in teaching and organizing and music, any number of them are homegrown, and they're homegrown, and they have so much less baggage than those who have come in older. Oh my goodness! I have a comment here, a question from a friend who's in Oregon. He said, "Is Brazil sending any missionaries out? And if so, where would they be going?
Well, Brazilians
locally, of course, or other
Brazilians
countries?
are going around the world. They're becoming one of the large sending countries now. They go places Americans can't go.
Mexicans are doing that
Brazilians, too. Yes, thank the Lord. Brazilians are welcome in many countries. They're not looked at as aligned in America's camp or anything like that. So they're welcome. We have, I know of Brazilian missionaries in India. I know of Brazilian missionaries. There's some Brazilian missionaries in the United States. Mexico, Paraguay, Argentina. I'm just thinking the ones off the top of my head, folks out of not my specific church, but our group of missionaries in Brazil. We have our Bible college up in the northeast of Brazil has helped collaborate with sending Brazilian missionaries to places like Mozambique, which is a Portuguese-speaking country in Africa. They're helping right now form a Bible college, a seminary. We call them seminaries. They're really Bible institutes or Bible colleges. But in Mozambique, because Mozambique was sending people to Brazil to get their training. And they're helping start a Bible college in Mozambique and training their leadership, training the professors of the school. And that's really exciting. Latin America, it's general. Peru, Peru has a tremendous church planting ministry going on in Peru, and many Peruvian pastors and doing the ministry themselves. Hundreds of churches in Brazil and Peru, and many in other places as well. Obviously, I don't know about every country.
Yeah.
The Brazilians are going into Venezuela. There was a group of churches started in Venezuela that I'm thinking they were English missionaries. Well, those missionaries left, and the churches were still there, but they didn't they didn't have the basis that they needed.
Sure.
They began to kind of drift theologically. And some Brazilians, I mean, what American could go to Venezuela,
Yeah.
And the Brazilians started going in there, and I know of several doing a tremendous work, first touching bases with those churches that already exist, helping them to get back in with sound doctrine and church planting.
Yeah. My coworker Juan is quite involved in his church. They have a mission board, and they're sending Mexicans all over the world.
Great.
Our church supports a Mexican family in Lebanon.
Wonderful.
Just left in the middle of the war. It
Yeah,
was a crazy story.
Yeah.
But they're there, and they're having a great ministry in Lebanon, and there's a number that have been in one way or another, even in Israel. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 missionaries maybe here in Spain from Mexico. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Mexico has started sending after receiving for so many years.
And Brazil is at that same stage.
Yeah,
And it's
well,
wonderful.
that would
to
be
see.
natural.
Yeah.
And it would make sense.
We had recently had a Brazilian speaking in our church. He's one of my preacher boys, saved in our second church, and now a church planter in Brazil, working with a good team of Brazilians and an American family, and they collaborate in starting churches together, kind of side by side, but still collaborating. And I presented him to our church. I said, this is what missions is about. Missions isn't about Americans going to different countries, which is we ought to do. Yeah. We're Christians. We have the obligation. But Brazil, the idea is teaching them to do everything whatsoever I've commanded you, Jesus said. And one of those things
it should
is
be reproducing
absolutely
on all levels.
That's the Great Commission.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're definitely moving forward in time here. Well, I'm convinced that we could talk for hours and hours and hours, because I've hardly even touched my list. But we have just this time, so we make the best use of it. I was one thing I had in here, just kind of a random. One thing that came to mind that I didn't want to forget is how the way I say it sounds almost heretical until you explain it. The Lord will surprise every single one of His children. That's one way of saying it. The other is, you cannot know God's will for your ministry. You go in a direction that you think is right.
Yes.
But I have yet to meet anybody who says, yep, everything's gone like I thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking everybody knows massive changes in their plans.
Right.
We had my plan, 5 churches, first one on the coast. We didn't do a single one on the coast. And God sent us inland to a tiny little bunch of towns, and then gave us the farmhouse. And I often say that in the 90s, I had a little bit more time, and we had the printing ministry, but I didn't have anybody. There was nobody to disciple because nobody saved. So nobody. So I had, in a sense, I had more time. So I would go out and preach for camps and retreats and so forth. And I remember going to a friend in Barcelona. He passed away a few years ago. Great guy. He's a Peruvian pastor, Milton. And he would organize camps for his young people at his church in Barcelona. They'd go out and rent a place, and we'd be there for a week, and I would teach whatever, all kinds of different topics. And I remember going there, loving to teach and preach, but watching him and his wife and whoever else might be helping deal with all the purchases and the transportation and the receipts and the reports and the, all of the logistics that went on behind a retreat. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to have anything to do with that. That's not me. I like the preaching part,
So,
but don't
yeah.
ever
And now
ask
you have,
me.
now you have one. Yeah.
And I've spent 26 years organizing mission
I had a
teams,
very similar story.
intensive institutes, retreats, and actually, honestly, I love it.
Yeah.
But if you'd have told me back then
Yeah.
what I've been doing for the next 26 years, for the last 26 years,
Yeah.
I would simply have said, "You're crazy."
Yeah.
And because God, if we say in our hearts, "Lord, I want to do your will,"
Yeah. Then be ready.
are you sure?
Yeah. Be ready.
You'd be ready,
Yeah.
correct. Go ahead.
And same thing happens with us. But I think the key is to be going toward God's will. Our
Correct.
goal has to be, I'm going toward God's will, and then be ready for how God develops that
Exactly.
plan. Because we were church planners, and for most of our term, we started a church, we finished a church, we started a church, we finished a church, we started a church, we finished. I mean, we were just in lockstep. We just moved right down. And the first 3 or 4 were like 5 years, 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. I mean, just moving on. Yeah. And I kind of thought, okay, well, by the time we've been here we're going to have this many churches, you know.
Yeah, of
and
course.
then all of a sudden, the last 2 churches were like 13 and 10 years to finish up. But in even finding a place to start a church, we would think we're going to start a church in this town. We're going to start a church in this town. And we'd go and we'd look for property. We couldn't find property. And all of a sudden, here's some property in another town. Well, that was, if we hadn't been out looking, if we hadn't been trying, we wouldn't have found it. If we were just waiting, for something to happen. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, go. And when you're in motion, it's like the Lord can steer you easily if you're just kind of waiting for something to happen. Yeah. We had a church on our second to the last church. We finished it up, and I thought, okay, now we're going to start another church. Well, as usual, we didn't have any money. Well, we never had any money when we started a church. I mean, that was a given. But we didn't have any money, and we didn't have any money, and we didn't have any money. And the property values were they were 10 times what they had been.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I could raise that money. I know God's got it, but I don't even want to ask my churches for that much money.
Yeah, right.
And then, so we helped another missionary, and the Lord just laid in our laps an affordable piece of property in a different place than we ever thought we'd go, and that was our final church.
Yeah.
And gave us people too. Yeah. So.
And you said that differently than all of the previous ones, you were not necessarily leading the project, you were actually helping.
Well, yes,
sort of.
Well, we brought in a national worker with us from day one. Now, that couple in the end didn't stay with us.
Okay.
But they helped us start. And then we brought in another couple from our second church, who then became who are still pastoring there. The wife of that pastor, Pastor Rodrigo, his wife was saved and brought into the ministry and through our churches and through our ministry because of that girl who was on the field for 9 months teaching our kids.
Oh, yeah.
She made friends with that pastor's wife's sister, who then got into our church, got right with the Lord, became our first Bible college student. Her sister, little sister, came along with her as a child and started attending our church. Her sister, the seminary student, went on to marry a pastor and is in another city. But this little girl, even though her family were Pentecostal Assembly of God, they let her come to the Baptist church. And she stayed in the church all those years. And eventually her husband was saved and joined the church. They married, went to Bible college, and they're in our church today. And I still point to that young lady who made friends in those 9 months with a Brazilian girl. Yeah, amazing.
You never know.
You never know what God's going to do.
You never ever know. One of the things I have here is my next thing is converts. You expect great things from.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes don't end up doing anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that.
And then you have the opposite side of the coin.
Yeah.
Converts you did not expect to amount to anything.
Yeah.
End up being spiritual jewels.
Well, that's what I say it this way. You're starting a church and you work over here because you see the ability, you see the what you think of as the future prospects for this person, and you invest and you spend time with, and they just disappoint you. Then over here, where you didn't do anything, springs up almost full grown.
Yep.
This wonderful person.
That has happened so many times.
That national pastor who's a church planter in Brazil now, when he was saved, I was not really interested. You know, he just didn't seem to have any qualities that drew me to him.
Yeah.
And he has turned into the most solid, steady. The Brazilians admire him and follow him. He has leadership skills, and I'm just amazed.
Yeah, one thing that brings to my mind is another lesson related to that, and that is we so easily quote that the Lord Jesus said, "I will build my church," but we often are building His church. We are building His church, and we have our plans. We think we are. We have our, and then we find out as the years go by, we think, you know, somebody comes, and slowly we begin to learn that, you know what, when God brings someone in, don't judge by the externals. You have no idea what the potential is for anybody who comes, and they may look like a mess. They may not impress you in any way, but if the Lord is building His church and He's bringing that person to the fold and saving them, and find out why that person is here, because if the Lord is building His church, there is something, and so ministries blossom out of people that you would never think could do anything.
Well, and you mentioned that, you know, people having baggage. We found that over and over again. People who had what we would consider as terrible baggage, they couldn't ever be a pastor or be a pastor's wife or a missionary or anything like that. And yet, they get excited about Jesus, and they start inviting their friends.
Oh, my goodness.
They come in, and in some cases, that original person sometimes drops by the wayside. But they got people into the church. One of our pastors today is married to a young lady that grew up in our third church, and they got into the church because a family started coming, and then they dropped out. But they got the other family in the church, and that's I mean, they just went. I mean, they've been a blessing for years.
Back 15, 16 years ago, when we first, all of a sudden, it almost like it clicked, and we went from never having visitors. A guy walked in, and he was a visitor. We got a visitor, a visitor. And then he came back the next Sunday with another guy. His name was Roberto, the guy he brought. And 2 visitors. The one guy came back, he's got another one. Came back the third Sunday, 3 of them came.
Wow.
And we realized, after looking back on it, 7 weeks in a row we had visitors linked. Most of them were Ecuadorian.
Yeah.
And all of them were linked to that first guy. Well, to this day, I've asked about that guy because he dropped off the end of the world. We hadn't seen him, didn't know anything about him. And I've asked, and people have told me that he's gone. He's back in his country. He is drunk and away from God. If he ever was with God, I don't know.
Yeah.
But because of him,
oh
our church began to grow
Yep.
in a human kind of
Sure.
perspective. And I mean, it's like, that's so sad. Does he realize what would he do if he realized the impact he had?
Yeah. But
you
the
just
Lord
never know.
the Lord uses people. And I think I told you a similar story. The Lord sent a guy down from the northeast of Brazil, and we had a situation. We didn't have any men that were married and saved. We had some men that were married. We had some men that were saved, but we didn't have any men that were married and saved. And the church we'd been going about a year and a half, and this guy came down from Bahia, which is the hot part of Brazil, and he just came in, little guy, and he played the violon, the piano, the guitar, and he sang, and he invited people, and he got men to come with him who weren't saved. But all of a sudden, we started having men in the service, and from the time, and then suddenly the weather turned cold, and he was gone. But in that short period of time, we got the gears in motion
Yeah.
of having men present, and men saw
never
men,
went
and they
back.
came. That church has a great group of men. I mean, they have a wonderful group of men, and humanly speaking, it goes back,
Goes
to,
back
that
to that
guy.
guy,
I don't
yeah.
even remember his name.
Yeah. You never know what God is going to do.
Yeah.
And there's a principle that I don't have a good name for it yet, but it's the principle that people, and this goes across all life, people who are not willing to stay and be faithful
Yes.
miss
They miss that. Absolutely.
they miss seeing the rewards of
Yeah,
faithfulness,
yeah,
because
that's right.
when things get rough, they try another.
They-
They,
yeah,
go to
they
another
move- they
another
move on.
field. They
Move
move
on.
on, and
They
they're
move on.
always
Yeah.
moving on,
Yeah.
and they never get to see
Yeah.
what happens when you stay.
Let me say this. One of the things I've learned is that I'm quick to judge other people's capacities. You know, I'll see somebody and I think, oh, this guy, I'm kind of like Samuel and looking at Eliab. Oh, this must
He's
be the
it.
king, you know.
Yeah.
This is the king, the Lord's anointed.
Yeah.
And they're not. And then I miss the guy who really is.
Yeah.
And I have seen missionaries.
He
that
loves to surprise you.
they weren't, they weren't really outstanding. Maybe they weren't particularly good preachers. I talked about our missionary friend there who never learned the language very well. Not a great preacher, but they stuck it out and had an impact. And I've known missionaries that, if they were in the States, they probably could never be a pastor of a church. Nobody would have called them. And yet they stayed, and the Lord used them and got things going, and they've got fruit all over Brazil and around the world. And the Brazilians love them and look to them as spiritual leaders. And I'm like, I'm just.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. So the point is, people don't have to think they have all the gifts necessary to do it, but if they feel a call and are willing to go, hey, do it.
Yeah. I got something here that is also, I think, interesting. Most of the prosperous ministries we have were not even on the radar when we first came. I have found that through the years, I've started any number of things, more before than now. I would start ministries that to me seemed like, man, this is great. This is going to take off. This is a home run from the start. They would just die on the vine. I mean, I'd go do it and do it a second time, and it just didn't happen. But then there would be a need, and we'd start something, and hey, that worked pretty well. Let's do it again. Do it again. And this year we're doing our 21st missionary teen retreat. We had no thoughts about repeating missionary teen retreats.
Yeah.
We did a missionary teen retreat 20-some years
And
ago
the
for
idea
our
is
kids.
spreading. The idea is spreading. Other people around the world
Well,
are doing
in our
it.
case, it was very simple.
Yeah.
We had no idea what was happening. God knows what was happening. We said our kids spend all of their lives, all of their time. We took very short photos. Our kids are here in the field. They don't get to go to the wilds because we're never there.
Yeah.
They don't get to go to all these fantastic camping ministries in the States because we're not there. They're missing out on that. So at that point, there were 9 of our kids. We had them. The Olivetis had 3. We had 4. And the Dodgens had 3. And so that right there was what, 10. It seems like there were 11. And we said, you know what? We're gonna do our own retreat. And we're going to bring in somebody, and Paul Witt came in from Berean.
Yeah.
And we had our first retreat at the farmhouse. It was so rustic, the bathrooms were outside. I mean, outside the building in the winter.
Yeah.
There was no indoor plumbing, no heating. It was as rustic could be. But we said, well, we're just going to bring a retreat. We're going to bring a camp to our kids who don't get that opportunity.
Sure.
Well, through the years, now, my goodness, we've had incredible experiences because it was like, okay, that worked. Let's do it again. Let's do it next year. We did it next year, and the kids want to do it more, and then they want to do it longer, and it just grew. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
The institutes. We said our people can't go to any institute. They hardly have work. They can't go anywhere. So Why don't we bring the institute to them?
Yeah.
An intensive institute. What's that? 5 hours. 5 hours on a Saturday of one topic. So we started.
Yeah.
And a friend, a Mexican missionary here, did our first one in 1998. 5 hours on a Saturday, included the meals. He taught on the book of Colossians. Okay, well, let's do it again. Do it again. We are now planning on our number 65.
Wow.
We've had 65 Saturdays of solid Bible teaching.
Great.
5 hours, just like the first one.
Yep. Yep.
And we had no idea. We were not starting a program.
Right.
We were just
doing something.
That we thought was needed. And that's just one.
Yeah.
That's just two. I mean, I could talk about mission teams. So, like I said, the most prosperous ministries we have were never on our radar in the early years.
Sure.
But,
Be available,
and let the Lord
try to
guide.
follow the Lord's leading. You know?
Yep,
Great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a lesson to be learned.
Yep. I have here, and you can interrupt with anything you have. When God does the work, this is what I've learned with our church people. When God does the work in a person's heart, He will have all of the motivation and all of the creativity that He needs. You won't have to be behind Him pushing and encouraging, or encouraging maybe, but I mean, you're not going to be pushing Him and forcing Him and come on. No. If it's God in Him doing it, He'll have all the motivation. He'll have the creativity. So give Him the liberty to develop his skills and go. I learned that from Pastor Sweat.
Well, I see exactly where you're going with that. And I feel the same way. I've seen situations where the missionary never wanted to let go of the church.
Yep.
I know of a situation.
Or let go of ministries.
The ministry, a missionary had been on this particular church for 30-something years in Brazil. And I mean, different culture, different everything. Because in Brazil, missionaries just didn't do that. They were there for a short time and they were gone. This guy, nobody ever was good enough for him. They didn't lead the singing well enough. They didn't preach well enough. They didn't teach well enough. They didn't run the Sunday school administration well enough. So he kept everything in his own hands. He went home on furlough, and another missionary came in to cover for him. And while he was in charge, he gave out all the jobs to people in the church. I mean, people had grown up in that church.
Sure.
They were ready. And when the founding missionary came back,
he was out of job.
He wanted to take all the reins back in his hands. So the church voted the founding missionary out.
Oh my word!
Well, because he wouldn't let go, and the people were ready. But if we think, well, they're not quite up to my standards yet. You got to let them do it.
That's foundational to leadership, is to know how to delegate.
That's right.
To delegate and let people not do it like you do.
Yeah.
And let them develop, because most of the time they will develop in a different way and do better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Better than you.
I see some of my preacher boys and their the churches they're taking, and they're doing
great job.
They're doing great, and they're doing better than they're doing things I would have never thought of doing. And praise the Lord for that.
Probably have a lot more energy than you do too.
Well, absolutely. To be honest, at the end of my term, end of my career, I just thought, I don't have another church in me, especially since the last two took over 10 years. I'm not
You're
ready
in
for
a different phase now.
Yeah.
I have here, sometimes fruit comes to the surface from seeds that were sown decades before, and often by someone else.
Absolutely.
And you can sow up a storm yourself, and then all of a sudden, fruit comes up, and you realize, you know what? Where did you hear about that? Well, I went here, there, wherever. And you find out that someone else's sowing brought fruit to your ministry, your ministry, whatever that means.
Sure.
And you think, wow.
Well, and it's because the Lord is the Lord of the harvest.
Correct.
And
It's
He
His
has
church.
been planning and sowing, even in people's. We would go to a town and start a church, and people would come to us who had been saved at another ministry that didn't even exist anymore, or they had heard somebody on the radio, but they were prepared. Their hearts were prepared for us. They were there waiting for us. They didn't know it.
Yes.
To arrive to start the church. It happened over and over again, and that's the Lord's work.
Yeah, it is.
And it's marvelous in our eyes.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing when we learn to, or as we learn, to let the Lord build His church, and seriously, not force our. I've known missionaries who came. They had their plan, they had their style. They got here, and it did not click with the Spanish psyche,
Yes.
or the Spanish
Right.
culture,
Right.
or the Spanish style.
Right.
But they weren't about to change.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And so they're not building the Lord's church.
Right.
They're doing their own thing
Yeah.
that they learned somewhere. Somebody told them that's the way you're going to do it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do it whether it works or not, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ultimately, they don't last.
Sure.
They do
Well,
a
and
lot
that's
of
what I was
damage.
saying. Be a
lot of people
lover
get hurt.
and be a learner.
Yeah.
I mean, the missionary has to be learning all the time about the people that are around
Sure.
him. And I think we do that with generations too. I mean, it's easy to say, well, this is how we did it when we started the church back in 1988, and so that's the way we're going to do it now. Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't work that
No,
way anymore.
the world changes.
Yeah, it does.
My sons just, they don't do things the way I did it, and even the way I would do it now.
Yeah.
They have a different mindset.
Yeah.
They're part of a different generation.
Sure.
And it's not bad. It's just different.
Yeah, and praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Here's another one that is so, and you would have seen it, and you probably, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but right now, because of the immigration into Spain, we have, our church could be called legitimately International Baptist Church.
Sure.
Yesterday, I could probably, if I sat down and could probably list 17 or 18 nationalities
Wow.
in that church yesterday
Yeah.
in our service. No doubt.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. Maybe more, but that many. If you looked at the conversations, and this happened once years ago, about maybe 10 years, I don't know, one of our furloughs, right before furlough, the Sunday before we left, I snapped some pictures of the people. I wanted to show our supporting churches, the people just having fellowship.
Yeah.
So I snapped 7 pictures, click, 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 of 7 different conversations going on at that moment.
Yeah.
And our church wasn't near as big as it is now, but it's probably 70 or 80 people. And so I took those 7 pictures, and then I put them into my presentation that I would show. And as I was showing the presentation in the churches, I said, you know what? I looked at them and I said, in all 7 pictures, the 2 people talking are from different countries.
Yeah.
All 7 pictures. I did not plan that.
Yeah.
And I thought, and so I started talking about that. And then I got looking at it, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 7 were from different continents. All 7.
Yeah.
They were people talking with each other from different continents. And so my statement here is, there is no unity among diverse ethnic groups like that which the gospel brings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Our people are not cliquish. We have Romanians, we have Africans, we have South Americans, we have Europeans, we have North Americans, and there is no cliquishness.
Yeah.
Now, they might come together for a meal or something like that, but it literally makes no difference what country your brother in Christ or sister in Christ comes from. It makes absolutely no difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's why some of the, in the churches, we've had these mission teams.
Yeah.
Over 70 we've had over the last years, and they come and they sense that incredible unity that is only Christian.
Yeah,
only
sweet.
Christian. It has no other explanation.
And you're just part of it, and you had to take some pictures before it came to your consciousness.
Correct. And we get used to it.
Yeah, sure.
Until
we don't even
it's the
think
way of
about
life.
it. Yeah, I had a lady one day come to my church, and she said, "Well, everybody in your church is black," and I said, "Are they?" I mean, to be honest, I had never thought of them as being
Yeah.
black, and she was overgeneralizing because we had other people, but
Yeah.
I thought, oh yeah, I guess most of our people in that church were from one state in the north of Brazil, and our church was made up of
black people.
baianos.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
they are. I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. It's and that's and you know the world says or wants to say that sports brings people together, and you have these massive sport events, Olympics and so forth, and they're all singing this song or whatever, and there are tiny moments of that. But sports brings out the worst in most people.
Oh yeah.
It's not at all a unifying thing.
No.
And then some of them will say music and so forth. No,
No,
the gospel.
the
The
gospel
gospel
is
unites people
it
like
does.
nothing.
Yeah. They,
And we have that privilege because that's,
yeah.
you know, people come in, we have no idea where they're from.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you can gather
Yeah,
where they're from, but
Yeah.
we've got them from five, is it five? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 4 continents every year, every Sunday, if not 5, yeah. So,
Praise the Lord.
good deal. Well, you got something there?
No.
We'll probably wrap it up here
Yeah,
pretty soon.
I
but-
think I'm at the end of my
Okay.
list here. I mean, we had all kinds of other things we could have talked
Yeah.
about, but I'm not sure we want to get into those
Nah.
subjects.
You don't have to. I guess that would be the highlights. So, the one thing I mentioned mission teams and ministries that we had no idea about. The Lord gave us the farmhouse, and most people know about the Ayer de Miracle story in the book. You can get it on Amazon. But we were praying for a place, and we had our ideas of what we wanted and what it was for.
Yep.
We didn't get what we wanted, and it wasn't for what we wanted.
Yeah.
It's so funny because literally the Count the Stars project had two columns, 2 legs. Honestly,
Yeah.
one was evangelism,
Yep.
a place for evangelism. We thought a place where people would come to be evangelized. That because they wouldn't come to our church. We
Right.
couldn't get anybody to come to church, so maybe they'd come to this. So that was one thing.
Yeah.
The other was the printing ministry.
Yep.
We needed a place to put the printing ministry. Well, as the years developed, the way the farmhouse has been, the whole way the thing is, people have been saved there, and unsaved people do come there some, but it's not a public place that we can legitimately have public invite anybody you want to kind of events. So it hasn't become an evangelistic tool, although the gospel is definitely preached there and it's used and whatnot. So that did not happen.
Yep.
When we got it, we were just transitioning into the digital age. We got rid of our presses. Literally, the place I showed you, the place that was going to be the printing ministry, never happened. The 2 things that we built the project on didn't happen.
Yeah.
But then out of that, well, you have the institute and so forth. One of the amazing things was when we got the farmhouse, it was unusable.
Yeah.
We
Right.
could not have an activity
Sure.
inside at all, not
Sure,
one.
Sure.
So God brought mission teams that just started coming then, and they would come to work. That's what they came. These were guys, I could rattle off dozens of names of guys who came who would never want to be behind the pulpit.
Right.
But you give them a hammer and a saw, or you give them a tool.
Yep.
Oh man, they're in their, in their suit, like we say here, and in their salsa, and that just snowballed. And all of a sudden, like I mentioned earlier with that friend of mine who was doing all the nitty gritty, we found ourselves, like we talked about yesterday, a lot of missionaries in Europe wouldn't know how to handle a mission team. They don't have
Space or
the space. They can't.
Yeah.
And so, churches ask for, can we bring a team? And nobody answers except us. Sure, you can bring a team. We have a place for it. Well, That wasn't our plan. We didn't,
Yeah.
buy this place to have mission teams. That was not the plan. But it became so that every year we have mission teams and we can host them, and that's our ministry. That's one of our ministries.
And many of our recruits, almost all recruits now that are for missions, are people who've previously been on a mission trip.
Yeah.
You know, they got the taste for it. They saw the vision and wanted to come. Yeah. So I had a missionary one time say to me, he had a camp up in the northeast of Brazil, and he said, "See this building over here?" He said, "That's my $30,000 camp cabin," and it was kind of like the old birdhouses at the Wilds. And he said, "I wish they'd have just sent me the money. I could have done more." I said, "No, you're missing the point here. If they hadn't have come, you wouldn't have that. Yeah. They came and they helped you build this, and they went home excited about your ministry. Yeah. They will never get over the excitement, and you will see fruit from this trip that has nothing to do with the amount of money." Because he was saying, they had airfare and the cost of food and the cost of housing that was, represented by that.
Wasted heat, so to speak.
No, they wouldn't have sent you the $5,000 you needed to build that. You needed them to be here, and we see that over and over again.
Yeah, some of our best friends in the ministry. Yeah. Many of them. Yeah. They came here. We didn't know them from the man on the moon. Yeah. They came here, became lifelong friends. We have so many we can't count them.
Yes, that's
right.
Yeah.
And so that's been a blessing. Okay, well listen, there are. This is a different list I have, but there's nothing critical on there. And I don't know how long we've talked. It's been going on for quite a while. I don't even know if anybody's still on there, but they can look at it later if they're interested. But why don't we pray and have you pray and ask the Lord to use this? Maybe it'll challenge someone to think about missions or pray for missionaries or pray for our mission. That's our desire. And go for it.
Sure. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to speak and expose people to missions and perhaps some novel ideas. Lord, you are the Lord of the harvest, and we obey your command right now to ask you, Lord, and beg you, Lord, to send laborers into your harvest and raise up missionaries and gospel workers and preachers and evangelists and Christian laymen and those that you want to use in your harvest. And we pray this and beg of you of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And